We will get started. Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us tonight for our Fresh Squeezed Gallery Talk with two of our artists, Ysabel Flores and Alberto Alonso. This is the second of four gallery talks for Fresh Squeezed 10. If you're interested in listening in on the other three, go to our website, morianartcenter.org, and then you can find info on the other ones. The first gallery talk was last Thursday, and that's actually been posted to our YouTube channel. If you go to YouTube and look up Morian Art Center, it is there. And then the other two are later on this month and one in June. My name is Amanda Cooper, and I'm the Chief Curator for the Morian Art Center. And for those of you who may not be familiar with our organization, here's a picture of it. We're located in beautiful downtown St. Pete, and we are a 109-year-old community art center. We've been around for a long time. Fresh Squeeze 10, our current exhibition, is on view through June 25th at the Morian Art Center. There are two artists in Fresh Squeeze 10 that are in the gallery across the street from the Morian at the Chihuly collection, and that exhibition is open through July 19th, so it is extended a little bit longer. We'd love for you to come see the exhibition in person if you can. I wanted to take a minute to thank our sponsors. We wouldn't be able to do what we do here without them. The Morian is a nonprofit arts institution, so we rely on sponsorship for certain projects. Lisa and Perry Everett are longtime friends of the Morian, and they are big supporters of us. And the Gobioff Foundation are founding sponsors of Fresh Squeeze 10. They've been championing this project from the very beginning. And if you live in the Tampa Bay area, it's particularly if you're an artist or you're affiliated with an arts institution and you don't know about the Gobioff Foundation, look them up. They are amazing, and they're just a great partner to have for for our projects. I'm going to talk a little bit about Fresh Squeezed, and while I'm doing that, I'm going to show slides of the artists in our current exhibition. So I'm just going to go through these, and their names will appear on the screen. There are 8 artists in the show altogether. So what exactly is Fresh Squeezed, you might be asking? The idea for Fresh Squeezed came about in 2017. 2017 was an important year for us because that was when the Art Center, the Morian Art Center, was celebrating its centennial. And for over 100 years, the Morian has celebrated and nurtured the careers of emerging artists. And we wanted to think of a way that we could do it more intentionally in the next 100 years. So the idea of Fresh Squeezed was born. So each year we put out a call for artists, and we usually have anywhere from 100 to 200 artists apply. And out of those applications, we only pick 6 to 8 artists to be in the show each year. So it's very competitive, and it's very difficult to narrow down all of those amazing artists to 6 to 8 every year. In the 10 years of Fresh Squeezed, we have exhibited artwork from 64 artists from across the state, coming from 27 different Florida cities, from anywhere from Pensacola to Miami and everywhere in between. So it truly is a statewide exhibition. If you're an artist watching this, oh, I'm sorry, if you're interested in seeing the 64 artists that we have exhibited and Fresh Squeezed from the beginning, if you go to our website, morianartcenter.org, there's a page for Fresh Squeezed, and there's an archive button on there, and you can go to that, hit that button, and you'll see we have them all divided up by year, and you'll see all the artists that we exhibited in each year. So it's something to see if you're curious, or if you just want to revisit what we've done in the past. Oh, I have to say, this isn't actually Gwen. This is her lovely sister, Maddie, who was here during the opening, but that is Gwen's artwork. If you're watching this and you're an emerging artist living in Florida and you're interested in applying for Fresh Squeezed, you're going to have to wait another year. Instead of doing Fresh Squeezed 11, we're going to, well, actually, you can check our website in the summer of 2027. We'll be posting the call for that. So it's another year from now. Next year, instead of Fresh Squeezed 11, we will be hosting a retrospective of artists who have been in the first 10 years of Fresh Squeezed. So if you've seen Fresh Squeezed in the past and you're wondering what your favorite artist is doing now, come see that exhibition. We'll show work from them and get a little where are they now bit from them. So, on to our artists who will be speaking tonight. We'll be hearing from two artists, and they will be presenting one right after another. And if you have any questions for either one of these two artists, just type them into the chat feature at the bottom of your screen, and we will go over those questions after both artists have spoken. First, we're hearing from Ysabel Flores. Ysabel recently earned her MFA from Florida State University and resides in Tallahassee. This is an image which looks really blurry. I'm sorry. This is an image of part of her installation in the gallery currently. And then after Ysabel, we'll be hearing from Alberto Alonso, who just got his MFA from UCF in Orlando. I do want to mention that or emphasize that being in the show is a lot of work for the artist because obviously it's kind of like a solo show. You have to have a big body of work for the exhibition, and it's a process. Not only did these artists fulfill all of that beautifully, but they were also finishing up their MFAs at the same time, which is a very grueling yet I'm sure rewarding process. So they kind of did double the work during this time, and my hat's off to them that they were able to have an amazing master's thesis exhibition and then all the papers that go along with it, and then also do Fresh Squeeze. So I'm grateful that they applied and were able to do both at the same time. This is a photo of part of Alberto's installation at the Morian. Both artists address issues of home and family, but they do it in very different ways. Thank you, both Alberto and Ysabel, for joining us tonight and sharing your incredible work with us. For the audience, you guys are being very awfully quiet, which is great. You can just keep doing that or mute yourselves. I don't hear anybody, so I think we're good on that front. But anyway, please do. If you think of a question while these artists are speaking, just type it in the chat and we will address it at the end after the second artist is finished presenting. So I'm going to stop sharing and then we will hear from Ysabel.
Thank you, Amanda, so much. Let me go ahead and share my screen with everyone. Let's see. Hopefully that comes up. And one more setting. All right. Can everybody see the monitor?
Yep.
Thank you so much. And thank you everyone for joining our artist talks this evening. I just want to express my sincere gratitude to Amanda and all the team at the Marine Arts Center for making this whole thing possible. It's been a wonderful experience meeting all the other artists, and the community members in St. Pete are all so welcoming. So thank you. Now, whether you're attending this Zoom meeting from your couch, from your office, or maybe even from work, I look forward to sharing my art with you this evening and offering some insights into the stories, experiences, and memories that inspire the type of work I make today. So this is a little bit about me. I was born in Virginia, in the United States, and raised in Sanford, Florida, which is just 30 minutes north of Orlando. I've lived in Florida for about 22 years now, so suffice to say, this state is pretty much home to me. Being born in the States and separated from my ancestral homeland of the Philippines, I examine my identity as a conversation between locations, highlighting the gaps in knowledge I have, as I've never been to the Philippines myself yet. And as a child of diaspora, I borrow nostalgic memories from my mother, my grandparents, and other immigrant family relatives. Channeling their experiences and oral histories into my practice instills a deeper, more intimate sense of cultural heritage beyond what I find in textbooks. So there was this one painting in the house with no title or legible artist signature. All I was told by my mom and grandma was that this painting was of the Philippines. And you could tell just by seeing the farmers collecting grains of rice from the paddy fields. I never thought too much about what it meant to me at the time because first it was kind of that touristy version of the Philippines, which gave off that same Florida postcard vibe with colorful palm trees overlooking a sunset horizon. It was just a little too good to be true. My mom was a city girl who grew up in Manila, so I knew better than to fall for the postcard version of it. And secondly, as a painting, it felt a little bit more simple, not using a lot of fancy painterly techniques that I could learn from as a young artist. If I was to be a serious artist, I should spend time copying those name brand masters of Western art, like Rembrandt or Jan van Eyck, or even Claude Monet. And that's exactly what I spent time when I first started art in college. So fast forward to grad school. Oh yeah, sorry. Like an old art history assignment where you copy the masters, I decided to reproduce the painting exactly as I saw it, matching the color palette and honoring every brushstroke of the unidentified artist. Because in grad school, when I started to reconsider what cultural heritage meant to me, I tried to imagine what the Philippines looked like in my head. And surprisingly, this painting was the first thing that came to mind. It made me think more deeply about what this painting held over me. And that's why I did a whole reproduction of it in that next slide. I needed to honor the power that this painting held over me. And if I was ever going to discover anything more about it, I would need to wrestle with it. So this slide is where I reproduced the painting color for color, the same composition, and really tried to study the work for myself more deeply this time. At the end of this exercise, I felt an urge to tear my painted reproduction apart to discover or create a new meaning from it. Stripping down the image became a very visceral act for me, opening up new potentials for what I felt it could say. I found an old white tablecloth and stripped it down as well. Now, on a side note, I do wonder what the original artist might have thought of me tearing the image apart. I kind of hope that artist to artist, they might understand that my reason for wanting to enter the dialogue with their work showed me a new view of his work itself. For me, tearing up an image is not solely a destructive act. Instead, I decidedly wove the painting and strips of tablecloth together into some new third thing. I felt like this opened up new creative opportunities for me to connect to the past and have conversations about complex issues that could not have been said from one easy to read picture. Instead of stretching this new fabric I had made over stretcher bars, as a painter typically does with canvas, I made a food reference and used it as a tablecloth, fastening it to a wooden table I had constructed to hang on a wall. I watched how perfectly the woven intersections of the painting with the tablecloth contrasted and obscured one another. This experiment led to exciting new journeys for me, a journey filled with more questions, where I interrogated traditional ways of painting and thinking, and I built a new language to express how I could connect to my Filipino history. With every painting, collage, or sculpture I create, I illustrate the cultural and psychological tensions that exist in the Filipino diaspora, visualizing what puzzling dialogues and memories feel like to me through color, through shape, and form. And so overall, my work directly references Florida landscapes. As I think about what physical environments shape, inform, and mediate my attention for identity, I go to local trails, sometimes painting in plein air, and other times taking photo documentation as reference. Observing the trees in different terrains, especially looking at my surroundings here in Tallahassee, there's so many hills, unlike Central Florida. I navigate the American landscape as a starting point to illustrate what it means for me to live in entangled realities. For the work, more alike than we think, I wanted to explore weaving as a dialogue between two distant places. The first image on the top is from my own photo referencing a lake in Mount Dora in Central Florida, while the second image below it references Timberland Rizal, which is a trail that my cousin Giselle hikes in the Philippines. And I decided to paint this from her photo reference. I stripped down both these paintings and wove them together as well, studying how our concepts of home intersected and complemented one another. And of course, the resulting third image became like a visual exchange between the two places. And still wanting to reference that dining table, I cut the painting into the shape of a banana leaf and treated these paintings almost like placemats and as a cultural reference to what's called eating kamayan, which means to eat by hand, traditionally off of banana leaves that line a dining table. These experiments that I've done with the weavings have ultimately liberated me into embracing new ways of painting. You can see this in the way I devise space and design compositions, borrowing the square motifs and contrasting layers that resulted from the weaving inspiration. I experimented with painting on raw canvas, forgoing the typical white gesso background of traditional painting methods, letting the watery acrylic paint blend and bleed into itself was a new technique for me. Now I've learned to look at the image plane as a physically malleable and sculptural tool. Weaving made me think about collage differently and how it's valued in comparison to a single painted work. In a sense, collage is its own experimental painting. Trying to build up a different kind of family portrait in these works that I'm showing here, these collage faces reflect the tension and uncertainty I feel in comprehending my ancestral history. The titles and the puzzle-like nature of the portraits express how it feels trying to put their lives together into one coherent narrative. Sometimes I see a face in a photograph in an album and think that it's by sheer familiarity that I will come to know who the person was. But that's not really how it works. And so in these portraits, I obscure certainty with fragmented landscapes superimposed over facial features. This forces me, and even maybe my viewers, to slow down and consider what complex contexts, backgrounds, and life circumstances make up a person's identity. Through abstraction, I feel like I'm able to open up the work for greater dialogues about life and see what it means to live in pluralistic societies. You can tell from the title that I find memory in general to be a tricky thing. The artworks that followed my weaving experiments illustrate the absence of memory in more striking ways. I became more comfortable with letting bigger gaps, bigger holes, and greater uncertainties show in my work, like this one called Viewfinders. Going so far as to even burn the canvas, I embrace messier edges and let go of clean cutout squares. I sometimes feel like it's through acknowledging loss that I find better answers to my questions about heritage and history. Here's an image of the burnt paintings in their initial installation at the William Johnston Building Gallery, or as we like to call it at FSU, the WJB Gallery. It was part of an installation exhibition called Place Within to talk about home can be defined through diasporic narratives. As some of you may know, the work has been reinstalled at the Marine Arts Center for the Fresh Squeeze exhibit and is happily greeting all those who come in to visit the space. The paintings are images from hikes I take at a local trail called Lafayette Heritage Trails. They've been home to me, inviting me into their welcoming paths as I process my thoughts. The unresolved holes and absences make me think about grief, lost memories, and reflect the questions I feel when I'm seeking an emotional connection to my cultural history. The clay bread rolls are called Filipino pandesals, which not only bring me back to childhood breakfast, eating that sweet morning treat, but they also refer to the labors of baking and the effort it takes to mature an idea. The whiteness of the clay parallels the meaning behind the holes of my paintings. With how universally bread can be read from different cultures, I kind of wanted to obstruct how easily these could be read. Pandesals are typically known for their yellow color and are typically filled with different fillings from ube jam to coconut jam and even cheese. Leaving them blank and empty disrupts easy recognition and slows people down again to think what role food plays in their own respective cultures. And here, in my most recent work, I created an installation titled Looking In, Looking Out, Reflections on Lafayette Heritage Trails. In this work, I strive to activate the wholes beyond creating mere absences. In this work, I'm looking for what spaces represent the Philippines to me. And similarly to what I discovered from my previous experiment, it is my own childhood home and memories that serve the clearest vision of Filipino culture. The installation, comprised of 3 large-scale landscape paintings, are wrapped around a domestic space. The surfaces of the paintings of the canvases have been pierced through, cut, and burnt, which allows for viewing from multiple distances, angles, and lightings. Within that space are ceramic seafoods that sit atop a colorful table in a reimagined dining room. Initially, I couldn't put a finger this whole time on why I needed to unite food and landscapes together. This kind of incessant return to food almost annoyed me. But then I realized when my imagination failed me to take me to the land of the Philippines, the magic of the kitchen let me taste my cultural heritage. Through the taste, the smell of the food, I felt the connection in a deeper, more embodied way. Here's another image just showing the inside of the installation with the dining table and clear view. And it also shows the backsides of the canvases, which reveal those underpinnings that have bled through my landscapes from the front. In this work, I serve, and in a lot of my works, I serve symbols of food rather than the real thing to tell stories of home that are meaningful to me. In the installation, I sculpted a fish, a crab, and some shrimps. I find so many things in common with other people when I talk about seafood. Beyond just my Filipino food references, I was born in the DMV area, which for those that are local would know that the acronym stands for DC, Maryland, Virginia. And there's plenty of blue crabs and shrimp to feast on throughout the year in that area. I also find that the South has its own seafood culture as well, which excites me to keep on using this imagery to make conversations across diverse audiences. Seafood is also another great way for me to reference eating kamayan. Again, talk about the messiness of eating with your hands. Working your way around the shells, the fish bones, and peels is quite an experience. Each clay replica in this work is hand built through slab building, coil, and pinch pot methods from clay, and scaled to the same size as the real food that they reference. When I hold each clay figure in my hand, the touch triggers my memories, and I'm taken back to those times with family, being surrounded by messy meals and sometimes even messier conversations. One story that I'll share real quick comes directly from the shrimps. These particular pieces take me back to the dinners eating with my grandparents when they lived with us. My grandpa, Dado, would authoritatively take over the kitchen and cook for the entire family. He knew me and my brother enjoyed very different flavors. My brother enjoyed the sourness of what's called sinigang soup, while I enjoyed the savory sweetness of shrimp. He spoiled us, making both meals simultaneously so that we could still have dinner together. And as a kid, I didn't know how to peel shrimp very well. So here's another story about my grandma. She was often the most patient one. She would peel the shrimp for me and place the soft, tender meat on my plate. And similarly, mom would also do the same for me. But before handing over the meat, she would often suck the juice out of them before handing them over because the shell had all the flavor and you can't miss that. Obviously, I would have to learn how to do the work myself if I was ever going to enjoy the full experience. And so I did. This is just one of the many stories that I could tell from my work. Looking to future projects, I hope that I can continue conversations around culture, growing up in Florida among family. And wherever I go next with my work, I think I will always have some kind of reference to the home, to food, and to local landscapes. Because it's in these places where comfort and familiarity, I can be most myself and ask the deeper questions about life. Clay, canvas, and color are all tools for communicating ideas in my projects. By liberating the canvas from stretcher bars, I explore all the possibilities that canvas can offer as a material. With every cut, tear, burn, or weaving I make, I feel like every thought, concept, and feeling becomes clearer. Treating each project like an experiment, my art evolves, challenging my previous concepts of what painting and sculpture can be. So thank you for listening to my art talk. And this is a little QR code to follow me on my Instagram page if you'd like to see what I'm up to next. Thank you again, Amanda and the Marine Art Center for hosting me and my work. You can come see many of these artworks for those listening at the center itself before done on June 25th. And now it's Alberto's turn to share his work with you. Thank you,
Thank you,
guys.
Ysabel. Remember, if you have any questions, type them into the chat and we'll get to them at the end. Hi, Alberto.
Hello. Okay, let me share my screen. Okay. You should be seeing the full screen with the presentation slide, right?
Yep.
Okay, perfect. So hi everyone, thank you for being here today. Thank you to Amanda Cooper for setting this up yeah, being part of Fresh Squeezed 10 exhibition has been amazing. Thank you, Ysabel, for such a great presentation. So my name is Alberto Alonso, right? And I based this presentation on my thesis defense, which was like an hour or so long. So I condensed it as much as I could, right, to keep it relevant to my practice now in the presentation and I'm sorry, the exhibition and the pieces in the exhibition. So I'll start with an introduction of myself and my background, and then what inspires me to make work. And the works are in no particular order. So first, it's important for me to talk about Puerto Rico. It is the place I grew up in. Um, and oh, sorry. Go back. Sorry. Okay. It's the place I grew up in, and my inspiration for my artistic practice. Um, Puerto Rico, in case anyone is not familiar with it, is an island that is part of the Caribbean, also part of both um, Central and Latin America, and it's also an incorporated territory of the United States. My family moved around a bit. We always stayed towards the center, kind of like the valleys and the mountainous regions of the island. And it was in Sidra that we settled. And it was here that I lived right before moving to Florida in 2014. So it was here that I formed some of my most strong cultural and emotional connections to the island, the culture, its language, the people, etc. And this is where this notion of homesickness comes in, right after moving to Florida. Homesickness is often defined as the intense longing created by the separation from one's familiar environments. And I long for these spaces that feel the spaces and places that feel familiar to me that have become less accessible over time because of many factors, of course, including not me growing up and seeing things differently, but also natural disasters, gentrification, among other things that have shaped and reshaped the landscape. I miss the islands, landscapes and how vivid they feel, how colorful Puerto Rico feels to me, the mountains that surround it. Um, and being distant from the island made me start seeing it differently. And one of the ways this happened to me is whenever I go to Puerto Rico, I carry like three cameras with me. I have like my phone camera, a film camera, and then a Polaroid camera. And I started taking photos of things that are considered mundane or ordinary, um, just because I wanted to capture my time in Puerto Rico and then create this sort of like record, of course, that I can look back to, right? Photographs serve as this can sort of like mediate this connection, right? When one's feeling homesick. Um, this homesickness is also accompanied by nostalgia, which is essentially yearning or longing for the past, a past that is long gone and it's become unreachable and unattainable. Um, so family photographs also come into play here as a source of inspiration. Because although I can't go back, I can go back to Puerto Rico, I still cannot return to the Puerto Rico that I grew up in, right? Because these specific moments are it's all part of a distant past. Um, and of course, Puerto Rico, it's not the same because family members have moved away, or some have passed away. Others I see less and less, etc. And our relationship or connections have deteriorated sort of over time. And so, I long for moments where we celebrate things together, like Christmas, for instance, or just being closer to my family in proximity. And these are the things that inspire my art practice and that I'm thinking of and I carry with me as I navigate being away from Puerto Rico. Um, so in this process, photography kind of like being the base of my practice. So this is kind of like how I started taking a lot of pictures. So for instance, this photo I took of my great grandmother when we were visiting her in Puerto Rico. And we were just sitting in the porch with her, and I just took a picture of it, and then of her, and then once in the plane, coming back here, I started going through the photos, and then this one stood out to me, because of multiple things. So it ended up being a painting that is part of the exhibition. So formally, I was interested in the figure and the way she's sitting in the hammock. The architectural elements in the background, the ornamental gate, the houses, etc. This space that it's a closed porch, but it's also an open space, sort of. And conceptually, I was thinking, or I was interested in this idea that my great grandmother embodies my family's heritage lineage in our history. And so I wanted to capture this matriarchal figure, right, in this very sort of like mundane, ordinary scene that she does. That she's sitting in the board. She in her hand she has this bowl that she's going through rice. Just because back in the day she sometimes would find like critters or debris in it, etc. Um, so moving on in
I
this
think,
oh, sorry.
Alberto, I'm sorry. Unless it's just me, it's still on the map.
Oh, it's still in the map. Oh,
Yeah.
uh,
I just realized you'd moved on once. Oh, there you go. Okay.
okay, there. Okay,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I think here. Let me. Okay, it's in the blue
Yeah.
house slate.
Yeah.
Okay, okay. Um, so moving on. In here, I decided to I was moving away from acrylic paint, where that painting of my great grandmother was done in my first semester in grad school. Um, so I was interested in sort of like depicting things more, staying true to the reference. So here I started to kind of like move away from that, but just focus on the same thing, just trying to or just capturing this a scene that felt very familiar to me, this local scene, this is very common in the Caribbean or in Puerto Rico. Um, and by that I mean the architectural style, the colors, the scenery, etc. Um, and the architecture, of course, Puerto Rico, kind of like complex history. It's a blend of Spanish and American influences. Some are known as like neoclassical, Ponce Creole, and tropical modernism. And then some other elements like the street signs in Spanish, it says transit, the other says se vende limbers. Limbers is like this frozen dessert in a plastic cup that's usually people can like sell it straight from their houses. So you can just stop by if you see a sign and buy it. And then some other things like I think there's a rooster or a chicken roaming around, the jalousie windows, the blue barrels uses trash can, etc. Of course, these things are not specific to Puerto Rico, right? I've they can be they're also part or they can also be found here in Florida. I just don't see them quite often, at least in the area that I'm at. Only I see them closer when I'm closer to like Miami or the Keys or closer to the Caribbean in general. And then I was more focused on using I switched from acrylic paint to oil paint just because I wanted to achieve a more expressive and more and thicker texture. So using this impasto texture um, was really, really standing out to me. Oh, are the slides changing?
Not yet.
Not yet. Oh,
There it is.
okay. Um, Next is this piece, Paisaje de Anhelo, or Landscape of Longing. Um, So another example of how I took a photo, which is the image on the left, and then my interpretation of it on the right. Um, I was wanting to depict, right, the kind of like how it felt to me to think of this landscape, this lush tropical landscape. Um, so inspired by the vivid green colors and the environment I grew up in. Right. This specific tree or plant is a plantain tree, which is native to Southeast Asia. But it arrived to the Caribbean through the slave trade, and since then it's become this staple not only in Puerto Rico but in the Caribbean region as well. Um, and so it has cultural significance, and I approach it the same way, sort of like. Some things are abstracted in the background, while the plantain tree itself is more accurately depicted. And then using this Indian yellow for the sky to sort of give it this kind of like surreal or idealized look, as there's this whole history or custom to romanticize Puerto Rico, um, that I use as I guess as a way to connect my paintings or my work. Um, and this next painting is about my great grandmother's house, which was sold a couple summers ago. Similar to the blue house that I painted. I was, of course, longing for that environment, but this one has more emotional significance to me, right? I was feeling nostalgic about the history and the connection that my family and I have to this place. So here I decided to depict it, and incorporate some elements that weren't part of the original photo, like, of course, the yellow around the house, the for sale sign, and other things. Some of these items are personal, and others are stand-in for some of the uh, current things happening in Puerto Rico, like the for sale sign. Of course, there's a housing crisis, the blue power generator. Sorry, speaks to the issue with the power grid in the island, etc. Um, so even though the paintings are intimate, right? I try to make them feel familiar. Um, and here's just photos of, again, kind of like more of an example, as I was talking about in the beginning. I was uh, motivated to create this after visiting this place one last time and just seeing it gutted, right? It was a very bittersweet moment for me and my family to let go of this place. So the painting again becomes a way for me to express how it felt to see this place, or how it feels when I think of it or when I remember it. Um, and this next one, this is, I think it was, yeah, it was one of the last paintings I did in my grad program. Um, And I asked myself, well, I've painted some houses, architecture, some landscapes and figures. What would it look like if I painted mountains? It's one of the things that I miss the most, right? So this is where that came from. As you've probably noticed by now, I go back and forth between these two modes of depiction, where one is more rendered and accurate, and then the other one is more stylized or abstracted. Um, and that's because I'm interested in how we perceive or experience memories or recollections, as they're essentially reconstructions of events. Um, each time we remember something, we have this assumption that memories are like this crystal clear image or moving picture, right? But in reality, our brains reconstruct the memory or the event every time we try to remember it. So it shifts and changes, and naturally, that comes with some inaccuracies, or some errors organically, right? Some things are crystal clear, and others are more blurry or not clear enough. So I like this idea of depicting, right, in this instance, the house, and then there's some leaves coming from the top right. That's a breadfruit tree leaves. Um, uh, uh, and they're depicted more, right, more accurate, more sharper. Things I remember more vividly versus the mountains are more abstracted, things I don't remember as well, but still remember. Um, so these two modes become a way for me to mirror that, reflect that. Oh, I think I went back too far. Um, This next painting, it's based on a photograph of my dad, taken the same day I did the plantain tree. Um, I decided to use the photo of my dad as a reference after exploring again some landscapes and houses, etc. I think I made the painting of a great grandmother, and then I hadn't painted figures for a while, and then I was like, I decided it was time to go back and revisit the figure. And this one has more of a personal significance for me, but it includes the three things I'm mainly interested in depicting: some architectural elements, landscapes, and a figure. And I like this idea of my work being intimate and familiar, right? They're items that are sort of like cultural and nostalgic symbols, like the plastic bag in the lower right corner, that is from a store called Pitusa from Puerto Rico. The store went bankrupt a couple of years ago, but I remember going to the store with my family and buying things. Uh, uh, the plastic bag says "Bueno, bonito y barato," a really common kind of like saying in Spanish. It means pretty, good, pretty, and cheap, and it's usually something we say when we find a good bargain or a good deal. And then, of course, other items like the castle I took from of an older Christmas photograph that I have, and then the public telephone. Of course, those are nostalgic representations of the past, those things are more universal, of course. And then the last painting I did in my program for the show. This is straight from a reference of an older family photo. I didn't necessarily incorporate or collage other elements in. Um, so it's a photo of my grandfather and my dad's side of the family, who is to the right, and then on the left is was one of his neighbors, and they're roasting a pig. This is a very common thing, a tradition that it's at every Christmas in Puerto Rico. It's a custom to roast a pig and eat it, uh, 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 be with the family, right, in a family gathering, etc., along with rice and a bunch of other food, really good food. But this one is a little bit different because I cut the figures out of the canvas, right? I was thinking on this idea of collaging and right, usually the painting is this in this kind of like square or rectangular format, and then it's sort of like becomes a like a barrier, a window, or a portal that we tend to look into, right? So I thought cutting them out of the canvas would take them out of that, right? And feel more just provide a more immersive sort of like viewing experience, feeling as if as the viewers were standing in the same space as these two figures. So we become sort of like part of the gathering of the whatever is happening. And then that's it. That was my last slide.
Well, thank you, Alberto.
Stop sharing. Thank you.
Thank you to both of you. That was wonderful. I thought I knew everything there was to know about your work, but I learned some things tonight. There is no questions in the chat, so I have a couple statements slash questions. So if you guys come up with something in the meantime, you must have explained yourselves very well. For both of you, what does your family think about your work since it's so personal and related to your family? What do they say? Do you have artists in your family? I feel like I've asked you this before, but I can't remember. So that's for both of you.
I can say a couple things. My dad would always be like, "What are you doing?" when I'm cutting it. And that's just him. But for the most part, I gotta say my grandpa, the same one who's the chef of the family, kind of inspired me because he used to draw a lot of family portraits, and he was also the archivist of the family, keeping tabs on ancestry and everything. So he kind of still inspires my work. And my mom has always loved nature, so I've always like picture her in my mind enjoying the colors and the flowers. And then my last name, Flores, it's like there's a little bit of a tie into that, like a little personal investment in there too. I feel a lot of significance about names and your kind of path in life. So yeah.
Yeah, for me, my dad used to make kind of like sculpture with found objects. So he used to go like I don't know, I have memories of like being with him in the car and then he would see like a piece of wood like on the side of the road. He was like, I'll stop and take that, or like we would go to the beach and he would get shells, right? And then he would make sculptures with them. As far of what my family thinks, I mean, I think they're I don't mean to speak for them, right? But they're proud, right, of seeing themselves kind of like being represented in my work, and of course, um, yeah, they're the main source of my inspiration. So I think the good, I guess, to you know, they they yeah, I don't know. I'm blanking right now.
That's okay.
But
I'm
yeah,
just picturing
anyways.
like your great
Yeah.
grandmother in that, larger than life or maybe life-size portrait, like
Mm-hmm.
just what she would think about that when she saw that for the first time, just
I think I had someone showed it to her one time who was there, and I think she was like, "That's me! Oh my God!" He painted me, and he was like,
oh.
Why?"
Oh. And Isabel, this I'm trying to think of how to the question for your collage work that's based on your family photographs.
Yeah.
Are the people in them, are they still living? Are they
All of those portraits are based off of my five grandparents, and
okay?
all the women are still alive.
Okay.
My grandfathers, both of them passed away, but
Okay.
um, I use those kind of like to connect, like as the building blocks for connecting to other ancestry. And so, but yeah, they have so many stories that they've told me. So I feel very grateful that I got to have a chance to meet each one of them at some point in my life.
That's amazing. I love that they're a visual representation of family lore, I guess,
Yeah,
it's an amazing way to record that. That is very cool.
thank
Oh, I
you.
think I think we have one question. Oh, we had one question. Gigi, where was your question? Where'd it go? Hold on, I don't see it now. Gigi, do you want to unmute yourself and ask it? I'm sorry, I saw it pop up and then now it's gone.
I couldn't send it to the whole group, so I had a direct
Oh,
message to the Morayan Arts. But I
okay.
wanted to congratulate both Alberto and Isabel. I'm just reading what I wrote. You both are great artists, and to graduate and still work on your paintings for the Morayan Arts. That is an accomplishment,
All right, it is.
full load. But my question is, how has this whole process of painting and how you painted your memories and family and home, you both had the same theme. How did this whole process help you form your identity as Filipino American and Puerto Rican? Did it help? I feel like, was there like something deeper that happened while you were, going through the whole process? Um, and it's just, this is a statement. I thought it's interesting that Alberto stylized your memories, while Isabel, she didn't have memories, and so she presented it through the holes. So it's just interesting how memories played a part in both your work. But
Mhm.
yeah.
Great question.
I guess I can answer a little here. Um, I guess this whole conversation about identity has like been a huge motivator for like making me actually think about places and why I like to paint places. Because like I grew up watching Bob Ross, looking at him paint landscapes, and then be like, yes, I want to paint mountains, I want to paint pine trees, all this stuff. But then I'm like, those aren't my local landscapes, and I'm like, I'm just gonna study the landscape that's in front of me just because it's there. But like, just to, it's funny because it started in graduate school when I thought about cultural heritage. I was like, I just need to know where I come from, like, because I know I'm not technically from this land, not indigenous to it. I need to like see where I'm from, which is that Filipino heritage. And funny enough, it gave me more motivation to understand my location here as an American as well. And then that gave me a springboard to really see, yeah, that I have a relationship to both places, that I'm not solely just one, but I'm from the Philippines biologically, but I'm also like presently here in a Florida landscape. And there's a conversation, psychological, philosophical, however you want to put it, between the landscapes. And all of a sudden it's like, okay, I'm not just trying to do practice, not just trying to make myself a better observational painter, but also like I have an emotional footing here and I belong here too, not just from other landscape artists I've seen and saying, oh yeah, they have a connection. No, I have my own connection. And so I feel like my work is forever kind of like myself, always in conversation with people, always in conversation with story. So yeah.
Yeah, I think for me, very similar. I feel like kind of like when I started this whole I guess practice or journey or just making the work, a lot of the themes and images that I use are very personal, but then the more and more I made, I was like, oh, like there's, I'm part of a much kind of like broader, bigger history of diaspora, of conversations happening right now, right? Um, and I feel like it made me uh understand home differently. Like I consider Florida my home, but then I consider also Puerto Rico as my home. So home, what is really home? Home is this right, we tend to think of it as this like physical structure, like a house that provides shelter, but it's really a space or a place where we feel emotionally and physically safe, right? Um, and of course we have kind of like connections to other things, right? And that contributes to home. And then also it sort of like made me feel very confident of my identity, right? I can't help but, of course, think of all the things happening in the country and around the world and etc. And putting these feelings and experiences in my case, into paintings and sometimes sculptures. I feel like you know, it 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 gives me not the right, but it feels like I'm making, this my family, my lineage, myself, right? People like me are deserving of occupying space, right? Are deserving of being in a gallery, in a wall, or whatever the exhibition space is.
I love that. Yeah, there's very when we're going through the jurying process for this show, like I said, we're looking at anywhere from 100 to, in this case, I think there was 130 applicants, and both of your work really spoke to me. I mean, obviously, there was just a sense of longing about it, and for me, it just struck a chord with me personally, and I knew it would for our visitors as well. Um, for me personally, like I'm a third generation to live in St. Pete, fifth generation Floridian. And I say it as many times as I can because it's kind of a flex because nobody is from Florida usually. Um, so, I mean, just I have such strong roots in this area. So just to think about, Alberto, in your case, you grew up somewhere and you were not taken from it, but you were, just the thought of you're not there anymore, and just how you talk about, even though you can go back, it's not the same. Like you can never just go back. Like that really resonates with me. And Ysabel, you thinking about a place where you've not been, but you feel such a connection to it through your family. It just really struck a chord with me. And I see people come into your gallery space here and you can just tell they're very moved by it, whether or not they've ever been to the Philippines or Puerto Rico or can relate to that at all. It's just something that really, really strikes a chord with people through your work. So thank you for being here with us. Are there any other questions? If not, we will close it out, and thank you to you all for attending this talk. We appreciate you being here, and thank you, Alberto and Ysabel. Thank you so much again for being in the show, for putting your work out there, and yeah, even when you were finishing up your MFAs, congratulations again on that.
Thank you. Thank you.
Can't wait to see what you guys are
Mutual.
gonna do next,
Yes.
other than being in the retrospective next year. So
Right, yeah.
you don't
Thank
get
you
away
so
from
much.
us that easily.
Thank you
So,
so much, Amanda, and thank you, Alberto. I hope we can all connect as artists as well, come further.
Absolutely,
I
yeah.
love seeing your work, and the color struck me. So I know we don't
Thank
have
you so much.
too much time for questions, but I will
Same.
be simmering and like texting about my
Absolutely, yeah.
no. And that's the other thing, just to say something briefly about that. One thing I love about this show and the longevity of it is seeing the artists that have been in it in the past and currently connecting with each other, and ones that have been in it in the past. It's kind of has a life of its own that has nothing to do with the show. I mean, other than being the impetus for it, I guess, but that as a curator, that just really makes you feel really good. So I love hearing that. So anyway, thank you guys. Thanks again for joining us. Y'all have a good night.
Thank you.
Thank
as
you.
well.
Have a good
Bye.
night.
Bye.
Bye.